Well, it sounds like you like doing stuff like that because there's something severely wrong with your childhood. On that subject, let's talk about Shame.
Shame. Yeah, Steve McQueen, 2011. His other credits include Hunger, 12 Years a Slave, and some other stuff. Nothing crazy successful. I think Shame, probably 12 Years a Slave is the most successful movie he's directed. I think he's British. Starring Michael Fassbender, Carey Mulligan, James Badge Dale. James Badge Dale is interesting to me. I don't know if you know much about this actor. We'll kind of do a little side note on him. Independent film, came out in 2011, NC-17. I don't know if you knew that going into it. Obviously, you're probably not too surprised by that rating after having seen it. I remember hearing about this movie when I lived in New York, and I wanted to see it for a really long time, and I finally found it at some random used DVD Blu-ray store. Got it, watched it. I thought it was very powerful. Don't know if there's ever been a movie that discusses sex addiction, which I guess is the bulk of the story here, that ties this guy into the pit that he finds himself in and can't get out of. Michael Fassbender is amazing in anything that he does. This was early in his career, so before he became super famous. I think this came out around the same time as X-Men First Class, so he was kind of on that cusp of being an A-list actor. But he's just amazing in this, considering the source material and what he had to do. I like stories. We talked about this with Mud, which will never see the light of day, but I like stories that touch on simple situations, simple reality, and I think this kind of falls under that umbrella, in my opinion. And I mean, it's obviously layered with the psychological, physical issues this guy's going through. This guy and his sister, played by Carey Mulligan, they obviously have some serious childhood issues that have been very instrumental in turning them into the adults that they have become in this story. And I find it oddly relatable in a lot of ways. Obviously not in such an extreme way personally, but I can kind of relate to this character and what he's going through.
Yeah, there's a lot of dramatic tension. I looked at the reviews and people were like, hey, it's kind of a tough watch, but honestly, I watched this and it was kind of autobiographical. This is exactly how my life runs.
It is?
So, yeah, that's kind of that's my life. I don't see anything wrong with it at all. So it's kind of weird.
Have you gotten to the gay sex club?
Yeah.
Okay.
Of course, that's included. I mean, everything, every scene was the same. That was funny.
All right, buddy, here we go.
These movies, they keep starting off in a certain way, and eventually we'll change our format. Maybe we'll delete all these previous podcasts, because I think if we had a comment section, they'd be like, that guy says the same thing every time. Well, let me say the same thing every time. I finished this. I went to IMDb. I looked for some more, recruitment of my ideas. Not necessarily, but just to make sure you're not just taking it from your perspective and making sure you don't have a maybe outlandish perspective. And a lot of people said the same thing I did, which was Act 1. I was glued. I was compelled. The first scene was a long shot. I was already kind of annoyed, but I'm like, okay, these are artsy movies. That's how it works.
You mean the nude walking around the apartment?
Yeah, with his, I still say prosthetic
It's
piece.
not prosthetic, by the way.
Yeah, it definitely was.
That's Fassbender.
Anyway,
nope.
Yeah, they put a bunch of clay on it. Anyway, so there's that scene, and I'm like, okay, I see. I already expected this. I wasn't surprised, but I was intrigued. I really was. I was intrigued for maybe 15, 20. I was I really was like, okay, this is, the characters are written well. I'm a massive Fassbender fan. Inglourious Basterds, X-Men Last Stand was just exceptional. He's just great, and so he plays it well. The actors play their roles well. But I kept having that part after 15 or 20 minutes. I'm like, so where are we going? And then his sister comes in. They did a good pacing on that and good build up. She'd eventually get there. Mm-hmm. And he's, sees her naked. So obviously he's comfortable in some strange way. And it's the same feedback I have every time. I'm sorry. I'm tired of this. I thought about this Schrodinger's theme. Schrodinger's cat, is a cat dead or not? You don't know. So there's a Schrodinger's theme, as I'm going to call it, that I can't stand, where it's at the very end, did he go off with a married woman or did he not? Or then were they sexually abused as kids, or it's open to your interpretation. That's not art. When I thought about why it's not art, sometimes you'll say something or what, you ever have someone throw something across the room and then just by instinct, you just catch it, or something like that. And people are like, holy crap. How did you do that? Right. And it was by complete impulse. It was just lucky. Right. Now, if you were to say, if you were to be able to provably do that many times and say, I did that, I want to do that and I did do it, that would be incredible, right? It changes the context. So to say, what I'm getting at is catching something in middle air in that case, there's one case where it's you knew you were going to do that and you did it, and one where it's just pure blind luck, right? And so the Schrodinger's thing, you're saying it could be either. I'm like, no, it does matter. If this guy has like ninja skills, that's amazing. He could do that. If he doesn't, it changes. It's just off chance luck. I didn't explain that as well as I wanted to, but the concept is the same. So if you're making a movie and you're like, maybe it does mean this, maybe it doesn't. It's up to you. Then that's not intentional. And I think it's very just lazy. I think it's using ambiguity. It's using modern art, the same thing I say every time, all these movies, to interpret stuff, to make it open so it seems artsy. If you would have cut out, and before someone flames, like that's the whole point. If you cut out some of the long pauses, and I still think you get the same delivery, and the sex scenes, right? Like the actual, like, and now he's, thrusting for 1 minute and 30 seconds. Like you could cut a lot of that out, and you'd have a made-for-TV show, 40 minutes long. Like it didn't need to be an hour and 40 minutes. It's just the filler was just filler. It wasn't good content. The theme was the theme. He's a sex addict struggling with it, the sordid past, and he has trouble developing bonds with people naturally because of his shame that came from some sort of trauma, and his sister is always there to remind him, so he wants to distance himself with it, but he still feels responsible because they're in some shared trauma. I'm guessing that's what you're supposed to interpret, right? And I just I don't know, I'm different from you. I'm like, yeah, that was a story. Now do more. The log line was great. A sex addict's carefully cultivated private life falls apart after his sister arrives for an indefinite stay. That's the log line. Okay, what's next? But that's the thing. That's it.
Like you're saying, the log line is the entire movie.
Yes, and that's the same thing with Mud. And it's a coming of age of a boy helping out two people in unrequited love. That is the entire movie. That's not how it works. The log line gets you hooked, and then you sell it to the executives. It's the elevator pitch, the analogies, right? And then you go from there, and there wasn't much more here to fill the space. It was just that. Throw in some sex, some phenomenal performances, some good cinematography, by the way, too. Yeah. Okay, dialogue, nothing really profound, nothing really thought-provoking. I was like, I thought the argument between him and his sister would be really something thought-provoking, because if you remember, I came across that, seeing a portion of that argument through another YouTube video talking about this movie. Then you said you knew about it, and then I got glopped onto it. So again, I wanted to like this, by the way. But I didn't dislike it. I just didn't see it. It's not Joker. If we're going to play artsy films, it's not even – a few things are, but it's not even in the same – it's not 2 levels away from Joker. It's like 3 or 4.
Well, they're completely different animals.
Yeah, but a standard art house. Here's a log line. Let me throw some artistic flair on top of it, and now I get to be Oscar nodded forever like Nosferatu.
I mean, it's a really interesting character study. And the log line, sure, it's a summary of the film in its whole, but the movie is about the characters and these performances and how they live their day to day. That's what pulls me in. I don't care about where it's going, really. I mean, I kind of know, and you had this impending sense of doom, like you think the girl might jump in front of the train or something, and there are those teases, like something horrible is going to happen, something horribly is actively happening to this man who no longer enjoys sex, but he is completely addicted to this chase and this feeling of a dopamine when he pursues a new prey, I guess you could say. And I think it's a really interesting character study in that way, because there hasn't been a film that's really tackled this subject matter.
Yeah. Darn it, you said something and I want to glob onto it again.
Maybe it'll come back to you. It's fascinating to me because he sort of understands and he wrestles with who he is, and it doesn't over-explain anything. Like the black coworker, the really pretty lady who he pursues and he approaches in a very traditional way. And you can tell just through his performance, it's amazing how this is never going to work. He can never have a relationship like this, and he struggles with that in this really, really effective way. And I think a lot of people, and man, I can only assume that that's more and more of an issue now with porn and all this crazy stimulation that's out there and accessible to anyone, trying to have a normal relationship with a healthy partner is like. And how disconcerting that can be for anyone who has any sort of introspection on their ability to kind of evolve as a person and move forward and create a decent life for themselves. You know, it's funny, and I'm going to regret saying this so much because Joseph Gordon-Levitt is one of the most cringe people maybe in acting. But objectivity always, right? I thought his film was decent. Now I got to rewatch it now. Are you talking about Don Juan?
Yeah, I thought it was decent. I can't remember how much I thought I liked it. I'm loath to say I like it because I can't stand Joseph Gordon-Levitt. But just, you said no one's addressed this. Of course they have.
Yeah, why can't you stand him?
You have to get inside his political preferences, the way he carries himself. Watch his and get on his Twitter. In any case, this has definitely been done before, and I found that movie more interesting. And it was the same thing. It was the exact same thing. He had porn. He had Scarlett Johansson. They wanted different things out of relationships, but that explored a lot of different interesting things. And just the different work. I can like name content. You had the character, the older woman, that she still had like her soul intact despite having a shaded past. Like the characters were interesting. They were well developed. They took the log line and expanded on this. This just takes the log line and then like genuinely just gives you filled in scenes. Like, okay, this scene, you all knew that he was going to have like a crashing scene where he like, he gets beat up by the guy. Right. And so you're like, you need that scene. And then he's going to have like a rebound on his addiction. So have him having sex with a lot of women for 7 minutes, right? And that like it's just long scenes. It's just padding content. I don't find it all that interesting. And then the oversex thing reminds me of Nosferatu again. You say NC-17, you say full frontal male nudity, you make it really shocking, you throw a compilation of a bunch of porn images in front of you, which they did.
You have to do that in a movie like this, or this subject matter, with something like this. I don't see there's a way around it.
I think the subject matter is stupid, is my point. It's like there's a better way to present it. That's what I'm trying to present. Like Don Juan, I don't even think does it have nudity in it?
Well, it's like sort of a comedy too. It's a completely different genre of movie.
Yeah, and that someone will say, "Oh, I missed the point." I'm saying there's ways to present this, and what I don't need is it's not even softcore porn. I don't need hardcore porn. I don't care about this. The better analogy would be like, you got the villain and he tortures dogs. I don't need to see the dogs being tortured. Nobody wants to see that. Nobody in the world wants to see that. If they do, they're really fucked up. I don't need scenes of that to really hate. There's ways to deliver that in interesting ways. And then, what you do? This I'm getting point. You cut all those scenes. Let's say it's a villain and he's a dog killer, right? Which is terrible. Or an animal killer, right? So you need 6 scenes going over that in various ways. Or you don't. You go over it, you cut in, you cut out. Now you have 6 scenes to fill with actual content that might be interesting. Dialogue, interactions, interesting things that pop up to the character, and then and whatnot. Instead, he just predictably is like, here's a sex scene, here's a shocking way he addresses a woman in the bar that gets her all excited. Like, it's just...
Well, when you say it like that, it sucks. Here's a sex scene. It's like, yeah, I get what you're saying. There's a little more to it than that, in my opinion, in what you're saying. I mean, it's a very simple approach, sure, and maybe you don't need that stuff in your opinion. You're not interested in the source material, I get that. But I think that I'm
very interested in it, and I agree with you that it's hit on many levels. You got the porn, you got the, like the cam girl porn, you got the cam girl porn, you got the magazine porn, you got the general porn, you got the porn on his computer, you got the one-night stand. There was a lot of boxes they checked, by the way. But then that's just it. Then they double-clicked into all those things. I didn't need that. You can deliver the story of we can't emotionally connect anymore, even to our own siblings, and address our past because of our shame of our addiction, in this case, porn or sex. If you're making a porn film, you need these scenes. This shouldn't have been a porn film. It should have been a film about a theme about sex addiction where you don't need porn in every scene or long, boring shots. That's not a movie. That's porn. In my opinion.
Well, I mean, I think this is essentially a story about being caught on a hamster wheel and not being able to break free, and it's about the repetition of that. So they need to show these things continuously, and for however long the scene goes on. I feel like the threesome scene went on a little bit longer than I wanted it to, from what I remember. Maybe it's only because I've seen the movie so many times. Old shit for me, man. I just love watching amazing performances. That's the biggest thing for me, and I think this is just an exceptional film in that way. I think top to bottom, there's no flaw there. From what I saw, I thought the casting was perfect, and just everybody's work here is exceptional. And the scene where Sissy Mulligan's character sings "New York, New York" at the whatever they're in, like a restaurant or a bar or something like that. It was just so beautiful because these kids, you can fill in the blanks, but these young adults, they were kids once and clearly had dreams of moving to New York and living the life and doing the thing, and they did it. And it turns out that it's not all it's cracked up to be, and they're really fucked up internally in different ways. And rewinding, how would you define art?
Oh, that's not even a fair question. Because it's so, I don't know. If I had,
I would define art as anything created by a person that moves you, period. So
I
I think we're surrounded by art every day, all day. Whether it's art you like, it's completely subjective. It's up to you. I don't think it's fair to say that a film like this is not art.
If someone takes a big shit and it stinks so much it makes you vomit, that would be something they created, which moves you. So no, that is not art.
To some, it may be, Daniel.
That's my point.
What did they do in Jackass? They literally did that in the Jackass movies.
Yeah, and again, this is what I'm talking about. So like with me, this is kind of like the reason we do this, because we're both different, but the world right now has gone to this. I say it all the time. The world's gone to this thing of, hey, we're so much better than everything before us. We don't need definitions. We don't need limitations. We don't need any left or right. And I've already talked about where the bad of that goes. Right now it's going into child exploitation, which is obviously happening in our society. And that happens because people fought enough to say, well, what's really the line? Who's really the person to say what love is between two people, right? That's what happens with that kind of mentality. A too open society gets what we have today, which is quickly collapsing. A too lockdown society gets you something more stringent, which is also oppressive. So there's always that in between. We went off the rails a long time ago with any kind of like rules or stringent, anything. And now it seeps into everything: video games, art, relationships, work, what work mean, like remote code, all these different things. And I'll always state there are at least left and right boundaries in this world. There totally are. And things that seek to like push that and make that the point. The point of those things is to push it. That's what the art is pushing the left and right limits. That's not artsy. It's boring. That's where I see a lot of art, is they think, hey, just keep pushing, just keep asking these ambiguous questions. And since there's no limits, everything can be art and everything could be right in front of the right person. And I'm like, okay, but that's not interesting to me.
Well, that's the challenge in originality nowadays, is so much has been done. And what can you do that's new and that really affects people? And I think this is a story that did that for a lot of people, including myself. I don't think as humans, as people, I think a lot of people think this. We are not better than we were before. But now we do have the tools to try and understand why we've become what we've become. And a great way to explore that is through stuff like this and pushing boundaries. Of course, there are missteps all over the fucking place. People do dumb shit, but you got to keep going, got to keep moving forward. There's only one direction.
That is a viewpoint.
It is a viewpoint. And this is true. Yeah, this is my opinion.
Yes. Progress for the sake of progress is the ideology of the cancer cell. I've always loved that quote. Because in your viewpoint, you keep pushing. And I'm starting to make the point like,
I'm not saying it's great you have to do it, but I'm saying it won't stop.
And I'm saying it won't, because we won't. We have a society that's exactly kind of like my point is right now. I think you'd at least agree we've gone pretty far in a lot of areas, right? We probably could do a little bit of a correction, which is happening naturally, politically, whatever else. And some people are less resistant than we thought to it, right? Surprisingly. There are limitations, right? But we haven't tried to say, what if we try and sit in this framework for a bit and really farm this and make this good before we try the next thing? How about that? How about instead of 2025 people doing online prostitution, exploiting children, reversing genders with mutilation therapy, surgeries, getting away with, financial crimes and everything? How about we first get the society philosophically right? The only way it's going to ever happen is with some sort of alignment of like, okay, well, what are our limitations that we all need, by the way? We all do. But people don't accept that, because the moment you do, they hear mommy or daddy or some oppressor telling them, you're giving me limitations. And I'm saying, yes, that's why people have personal trainers. That's why people that become writers go on TV shows, and you have to finish the show by the end of this week. Limitations are not bad. Deadlines, limitations, they're not bad. But we keep pushing, and we push so far, we've lost the fabric of having a society.
Not to be too grim, but I think in order for this to stop, it's going to take a collapse in society.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this. Yeah, I've been saying the reckoning for a while.
Of course, I'm not going to support, degenerate and awful behavior. We're here. Let's enjoy. Let's try to enjoy our lives and enjoy our time. Just kind of live positively instead of think the sky is falling the whole time.
There's reasons people rise and fall. Maybe my more intense look at this, right? Would I be helpful after the reckoning? Let's just say this, as a thought experiment. Probably not, right? Because then maybe someone like me might keep on saying we got to restrict more. That's the whole game, right? Or someone wants to push more, I keep saying we want to push more. You got a far left, far right, however you want to decide, far good, far bad, whatever you want to call it, far blue or green, right? My point is, I objectively and patently disagree. We have gone far enough. We need something, which would be limitation, is what you're saying. And I think we've taken this train as far as we can go. It's not having a constant doom and gloom look at the way the world is. It's saying people need to get involved in this and realize how bad it is, to take action to reverse it. Limitations, restrictions, calling people out, going on online reviews, bring back to me, to go on online reviews and say, I actually didn't like it. Or Nosferatu, everyone likes it, I can't say I don't, because if I put it on Reddit, I'll get downvoted, which is exactly what happened, by the way. That's exactly what will happen if you post on Reddit. I'm going to say, I don't like this movie, and here's why. We need some more of that.
And essentially that comes down to truth, right? And just being completely authentic in your opinion and how you feel and how you treat others and all that stuff. It's difficult to do, but the truth will set you free. There's a lot to that.
You arrive at the thing, I feel like my heart all the time, and without me saying the word. Yeah, I agree. Truth is what I'm getting at.
It's
and
truth.
The problem
That's the
is,
underlying thing, yeah. And it's really hard for people to live their truth. It really is. How does a character like Brandon, that Fassbender plays, deal with his truth?
I saw one interesting comment. I like this about it is everyone else is just participating in the lie. The guy's cheating on his wife. Carey Mulligan is banging whatever walks. You know, the woman from his work is implying that, you know, relationships matter, whatever else, but perfectly willing to have a one-night stand or some sort of like, you know, meaningless thing. Because she knows he's not going to do more than that. But he's the only one that feels deeply, like, regretful about it. I guess Carey Mulligan does too, but, like, you know, his boss doesn't. Certainly not.
Well, we don't know that.
Him being, yeah, we don't. But I think I like the perspective that him being aware of the truth of his actions and the shame he has is what kind of drives him to be so shameful about it, whereas everyone else is kind of like seemingly just okay with it day to day.
Seemingly. Yeah, I think that's a lot of us. I kind of had a feeling that you were going to be annoyed by a lot of it, but it's a movie that I really wanted you to watch for a long time because I'm naturally curious about what you think. So let's go ahead and get to some numbers. I'm going 8-1. This deserves an 8.
I give it a 7.5. I really would like to discuss maybe starting over again or something. I don't know. I like some sort of format. There you go. Limitations. I listen back to these and I don't talk enough about the film because there was a lot of good, to be clear, and I have notes about them. I just don't get to them because I get so engrossed in our conversation.
Yeah. That's kind of why we do this. The movie is the kickstart, and we obviously talk about the movie and give it a number. But I think what's more interesting personally, and this is just my life in general, how you can bring film into the natural world and find it relatable.